Deep in the Appalachian wilderness, where civilization forgot to reach, investigators stumbled upon a settlement that defied every law of nature and humanity. For over a century, the same family had lived in complete isolation, their bloodline tangled through generations of brothers, marrying sisters, fathers taking daughters as wives. But the inbreeding was only the beginning of the horror. The children had been raised on human flesh, believing cannibalism was their sacred tradition. When authorities finally discovered them, they found physical abnormalities that medical science couldn't explain. Elongated limbs, oversized skulls, and behaviors that seemed more animal than human. The clan had survived where others would have perished, thriving on a diet that should have killed them. But here's what haunted the investigators most. How had they acquired so much human meat in such a remote location? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Detective Sarah Morrison had seen her share of disturbing crime scenes in 23 years with the West Virginia State Police. But nothing had prepared her for the call that came in on that gray October morning. The hunting party had stumbled across something in the remote hollows of Greenbrier County, something that defied explanation. The missing persons reports lay scattered across her desk like fallen leaves, each one telling the same story. Hikers vanishing without a trace, backpackers who never returned from weekend trips, experienced outdoorsmen who simply disappeared into the Appalachian wilderness. The reports stretched back decades, forming a pattern so subtle that no one had connected the dots, until now. Detective Morris, the voice belonged to Bobby Hutchins, a local hunter whose face had gone pale as mountain mist. You need to see this for yourself. Words ain't gonna do it justice. The drive into the mountains took 2 hours along increasingly narrow dirt roads that seemed to lead nowhere. The forest grew thicker with each mile, ancient oaks and maples creating a canopy so dense that midday felt like twilight. Morrison's radio crackled with static, then fell silent. Cell phone service had disappeared miles ago. When they finally stopped, Morrison understood why Hutchins looked like he'd seen a ghost. The settlement sat in a natural depression, hidden from any road or trail. Crude structures made from salvaged materials and rough-hewn logs dotted the clearing. But it wasn't the primitive buildings that made her stomach turn. It was what lay scattered between them. Bones. Hundreds of them, bleached white by weather and time. Human bones, sweet Jesus. Morrison whispered, pulling on latex gloves with trembling hands. Her breath came out in visible puffs as she approached the nearest dwelling, a ramshackle lean-to constructed from old car doors and rusted sheet metal. The smell hit her first decay, and something else, something wrong that made her primitive brain scream warning. Inside the shelter she found evidence that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Crude tools for butchering, strips of meat hanging from makeshift racks, and photographs, dozens of Polaroids, showing the processing of human remains with the casual efficiency of a backwoods slaughterhouse. Movement caught her eye from across the clearing. A figure emerged from one of the larger structures, moving with an odd, shambling gait. Morrison's hand instinctively moved to her service weapon as she got her first look at one of the settlement's inhabitants. The woman, if it was a woman, stood nearly 7 feet tall, with limbs that seemed too long for her torso. Her skull was misshapen, elongated in a way that suggested severe developmental abnormalities. But her eyes were what truly disturbed Morris. They held an intelligence that was unmistakably human, yet completely alien. "Ma'am," Morrison called out, her voice cracking despite her attempts to remain professional. "I'm Detective Morrison, with the state police. I need to speak with you." The creature, Morrison couldn't think of her any other way, tilted her oversized head and smiled, revealing teeth that had been filed to points. When she spoke, her voice carried the accent of deep Appalachia, but the words themselves chilled Morrison to the bone. "Well now, ain't you a pretty little thing? Been a long while since we had visitors up here." The woman's grin widened. "You best come in and meet the family. We was just fixin' to have ourselves some dinner." More figures began emerging from the shadows between the buildings. Men, women, and children, all sharing the same disturbing physical characteristics. Elongated limbs, oversized skulls, and those terrible intelligent eyes. A family that had clearly been isolated for generations, their gene pool growing smaller and stranger with each passing year. Morrison reached for her radio, knowing it was useless but needing to try anyway. The static that answered her call seemed to amuse the tall woman, who let out a laugh that sounded more like a coyote's howl than anything human. "Radio don't work up here," the woman said, taking a step closer. "Neither do them fancy phones. We like our privacy, you see. Been keeping to ourselves for nigh on 100 years now." As Morrison backed toward her vehicle, she caught sight of something that made her blood run cold. A fresh bundle of missing person flyers, rain-soaked and muddy, lay beside one of the bone piles. The faces of recent victims stared up at her. From the soggy paper, young hikers who had vanished just weeks ago. She understood then that she wasn't looking at an abandoned settlement or even a crime scene. She was standing in the middle of an active hunting ground, surrounded by predators who had perfected their craft over generations of isolation and inbreeding. The tall woman was still smiling when Morrison reached her car, but now other members of the clan had begun to circle the vehicle with the patient movements of wolves surrounding wounded prey. The genealogical chart carved into the bark of an ancient oak tree told a story that defied comprehension. Dr. Amanda Rivers, the forensic genealogist brought in to untangle the clan's lineage, traced the crude markings with her finger, each line representing a relationship that violated every social and biological norm. "This can't be accurate," she murmured to Detective Morrison, who stood beside her in the settlement center. No family could survive this level of inbreeding for 5 generations. Yet the evidence surrounded them. 23 clan members sat in a loose circle, their restraints more for psychological comfort than physical necessity. They showed no inclination to flee, seeming genuinely puzzled by the authorities' distress over their lifestyle. The patriarch sat at the center of the group, a man who introduced himself as Ezekiel Bain, with the casual pride of a mayor welcoming visitors to his town. His age was impossible to determine. He could have been 50 or 80. The inbreeding had created features that existed outside normal human variation. "This here's my family tree," Ezekiel said, nodding toward the carved bark. Great-great-granddaddy Silas started it all back in 1923. Had himself 4 daughters and no sons. Well, he figured the Lord don't make mistakes, so he did what needed doing to keep the family going. Dr. Rivers felt her stomach clench as she followed the carved lines. Silas Bain had indeed fathered children with his own daughters. Those children had then mated with each other, creating the second generation. The pattern continued relentlessly downward, brother to sister, father to daughter, uncle to niece. The genetic consequences should have been catastrophic, Dr. Rivers whispered to Morris. Severe mental retardation, fatal birth defects, immune system failures. This family should have died out in the second generation. But they hadn't died out. They had thrived in their twisted way, adapting to their environment and their dietary choices with an efficiency that challenged everything science understood about human genetics. FBI Special Agent Marcus Webb arrived that afternoon with a team of behavioral analysts and forensic experts. His first interview with Ezekiel revealed a worldview so fundamentally different from civilization that it might as well have come from another planet. "You people act like we done something wrong," Ezekiel said, his elongated fingers drumming against his knee. "But we been living the way the Lord intended, keeping the bloodline pure, taking care of our own, surviving off the land he provided." Agent Webb kept his expression neutral despite the revulsion churning in his stomach. "When you say surviving off the land, what exactly do you mean?" Ezekiel's smile revealed those filed teeth that seemed to be a family trait. "Well, now the mountains provide all sorts of nourishment for them that knows how to look. game animals, wild plants, and the occasional lost soul who wanders into our territory. The casual admission of cannibalism delivered with the tone of a cooking show host made Webb's skin crawl, but it was the next part of Ezekiel's explanation that truly disturbed him. See, we learned early on that the regular food don't agree with us much. Makes us sick, weak, but the other kind, the special meat that makes us strong, helps the young'uns grow proper. Dr. Rivers interrupted the interview with urgent findings from her preliminary genetic analysis. Agent Webb, you need to see this. The blood samples show mutations I've never encountered. Their digestive systems appear to have adapted specifically for processing human protein. The implications were staggering. Somehow, through 5 generations of the most extreme inbreeding imaginable, this family had not only survived but evolved. Their bodies had adapted to their cannibalistic diet, developing enhanced digestive capabilities and resistance to the diseases that should have killed them. Ruth Bain, Ezekiel's sister wife and the clan's primary hunter, provided the most chilling insights during her interrogation. Her intelligence was sharp despite her disturbing appearance, and she spoke about their lifestyle with the matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing the weather. Daddy Ezekiel says I got the best nose for tracking in 3 generations, she said proudly. Can smell a person from 2 miles off when the wind's right, know if they're sick, scared, or strong, just from their scent. She described their hunting methods with disturbing efficiency. They would track hikers and campers for days, learning their patterns and weaknesses before striking. The clan had developed an intricate knowledge of local trails and camping areas, turning the entire mountain region into their personal hunting preserve. Most folks today are soft, Ruth explained. City-raised don't know the first thing about surviving in the wild, makes 'em easy prey. Though we do prefer the young ones, meat's more tender, and they put up less fight. The family tree carved into that oak told more than just a genealogical story. It revealed the systematic creation of apex predators, human beings who had adapted beyond recognition while maintaining just enough humanity to make their existence a walking nightmare. James Whitmore had worked forensic anthropology cases across 3 decades, but nothing had prepared him for the systematic catalogue of human remains scattered throughout the Bain settlement. The bone collection inventory would take weeks to complete, each fragment telling its own story of horror. The processing area lay behind the main compound, carefully concealed from any casual observer who might stumble upon the settlement. Rough wooden tables stained dark with decades of use stood beneath a crude lean-to shelter. Hand-forged tools hung from pegs driven into support posts, cleavers, bone saws and implements that had no name in civilized society. Jesus Christ, muttered crime scene investigator Tom Bradley, photographing a collection of human skulls arranged with disturbing precision along one wall. How many people are we talking about here? Dr. Whitmore examined femur bones that showed clear-cut marks, evidence of systematic butchering performed with practiced efficiency. Based on preliminary counts, we're looking at remains from at least 40 individuals, possibly more. The victims represented a cross-section of Appalachian hikers and campers, spanning multiple decades. Dental records and personal effects found scattered throughout the area told stories of lives cut brutally short. College students on spring break camping trips, experienced backpackers who had vanished without a trace, local hunters who had simply never returned home. Detective Morrison discovered the clan's trophy collection in a root cellar beneath the main dwelling. Wallets, driver's licenses and camping gear from dozens of victims lay sorted with the meticulous organization of a museum curator. Each item was carefully preserved, labeled with crude markings that seemed to indicate dates and locations. They kept everything, Morrison said, her voice hollow with shock. Every wallet, every ID, every piece of personal property, like they were collecting souvenirs. The forensic team's investigation revealed hunting patterns that spoke to generations of refined predatory behavior. The clan had developed an intimate knowledge of local hiking trails, seasonal migration patterns of outdoor enthusiasts, and the optimal times for hunting human prey. Agent Webb interviewed Ruth Bain about their hunting methodology. Her responses delivered with the casual expertise of a master craftsman, discussing her trade. "We learned early that timing matters most," Ruth explained, her filed teeth glinting in the fluorescent light of the mobile command center. "Spring brings the college kids, all loud and careless. Summer's got the families with little ones, easier to track, but more folks likely to be missed quick. Fall's best for the serious hikers, the ones who come alone and don't tell nobody where they're going." She described their territory with predatory precision. The clan controlled roughly 30 square miles of mountainous terrain, using natural funnels and choke points to guide their prey toward prepared killing zones. They had spent decades learning the psychology of lost hikers, understanding how fear and disorientation could drive people deeper into their hunting grounds. "Most folks, when they get turned around, they panic," Ruth continued. "Start making noise, crashing through the brush like wounded deer. We just follow the sound and wait for them to tire themselves out. Then we move in quiet like." The bone analysis revealed disturbing details about the clan's feeding habits. Many of the remains showed evidence of careful preservation techniques, smoking, salting, and curing methods that allowed them to store human meat for extended periods. They had developed their own primitive but effective food preservation system. Whitmore discovered cut marks on bones that indicated the clan had developed specialized butchering techniques, maximizing meat yield while minimizing waste. "They weren't just killing and eating randomly," he explained to the investigation team. "This shows sophisticated understanding of human anatomy and food processing." The most disturbing discovery came from the clan's preparation area, where investigators found evidence that some victims had been kept alive for extended periods before being processed. Makeshift cages constructed from salvaged materials showed signs of long-term use, with scratch marks on metal surfaces that told stories of desperate attempts at escape. Young Timothy Bain, Ezekiel's grandson's son, provided chilling insights into their hunting education during his psychological evaluation. At 15, he displayed the same elongated features as the rest of his family, but his youth made his casual attitude toward murder even more disturbing. "Granddaddy started teaching me to track when I was 7, Timothy said proudly. "Said I had the best nose in the family since Great-Aunt Ruth. First time I helped with a catch, I was 12. Granddaddy let me have the liver. Said it was the best part for growing boys." The investigators realized they weren't dealing with occasional cannibalistic incidents driven by desperation or mental illness. The Bain clan had created a sustainable hunting operation that had supplied them with human meat for nearly a century, turning murder into a generational family business practiced with the efficiency of any other rural occupation. The bone collection told the story of their success, hundreds of victims whose disappearances had been dismissed as hiking accidents or simply people choosing to vanish into the wilderness. The clan had hidden in plain sight, using society's assumptions about missing persons to maintain their hunting grounds, undisturbed for generations. Elena Rodriguez had examined thousands of patients during her career as a forensic pathologist, but the medical examination report she was compiling on the Bain clan challenged everything she understood about human physiology. The blood work alone defied medical explanation. These people should have been dead from genetic disorders, yet they displayed remarkable health indicators. "Look at these digestive system scans," Dr. Rodriguez said to her colleague, Dr. Michael Foster, pointing to the X-rays displayed on the light board. "The stomach capacity is nearly double normal size, and the intestinal tract shows elongation consistent with carnivorous adaptation." Ruth Bain lay on the examination table with surprising cooperation, seeming genuinely curious about the medical attention. Her elongated frame barely fit the standard hospital gurney, and her oversized skull required specialized imaging equipment to capture complete scans. "Never had nobody poke and prod at me like this before," Ruth commented with what might have been amusement. "Y'all seem mighty interested in how we're put together." Rodriguez tried to maintain professional composure while examining features that belonged in a medical textbook on genetic anomalies. Ruth's dental structure showed adaptations that were simply impossible: enlarged canines and modified molars, perfectly designed for processing raw meat and crushing bone. The cranial capacity is 30% larger than normal, Dr. Foster observed, reviewing the brain scans. But rather than indicating hydrocephalus or other pathology, the brain tissue appears to completely fill the enlarged space. We're looking at genuinely enhanced cranial development. Blood test revealed even more disturbing adaptation. The clan members showed immunity to diseases that should have been fatal, particularly those associated with consuming contaminated meat. Their white blood cell counts were dramatically elevated, suggesting immune systems operating at superhuman efficiency. Ezekiel Bain proved to be the most medically fascinating subject. At an estimated age of 65, his body showed wear patterns consistent with extreme physical activity and environmental stress, yet his organ function registered better than most men, half his age. "Your family's diet," Rodriguez said carefully during Ezekiel's examination, "it should have caused severe health problems. Prion diseases, parasites, nutritional deficiencies. How do you account for your apparent good health?" Ezekiel's laugh rattled in his enlarged chest cavity. "Doc, my great-granddaddy lived to be 97 on nothing but what the mountains provided. My daddy made it to 84 before a rockslide took him. We don't get sick like regular folks, because we ain't regular folks anymore." The genetic analysis revealed mutations that had no precedent in medical literature. Dr. Rodriguez consulted with specialists at Johns Hopkins and the CDC, but none could explain how such extreme genetic drift had produced viable, thriving human beings rather than the expected, catastrophic birth defects. "The metabolic efficiency is extraordinary," noted Dr. Sarah Kim, a geneticist brought in to analyze the clan's DNA. "Their bodies process protein with nearly 100% efficiency. They're extracting maximum nutritional value from their diet while filtering out toxins that would kill normal humans." Young Timothy Bain provided the most disturbing medical data. At 15, he already showed the physical adaptations of the adult clan members, suggesting these changes occurred during development rather than as acquired characteristics. "The boy's muscle density is off the charts," Foster reported after Timothy's physical examination. "He's showing strength indicators comparable to elite athletes, but with no formal training or exercise regimen." Timothy seemed proud of his physical capabilities, demonstrating grip strength that bordered on superhuman. "Granddaddy says I'm the strongest young'un born to the family in 3 generations, says I'll make a fine hunter when I'm full grown." The medical team's attempts to understand the clan's apparent immunity to foodborne pathogens led to shocking discoveries. Laboratory analysis of their stomach acid showed pH levels so low they approached industrial acid concentrations, capable of breaking down not just meat and bone, but also destroying bacteria and parasites that would devastate normal digestive systems. Rodriguez found herself questioning fundamental assumptions about human adaptability. "We're looking at physiological changes that should take thousands of years of evolution compressed into 5 generations through extreme selective pressure." The clan members' sensory capabilities also exceeded normal human ranges. Hearing tests revealed sensitivity to frequencies both above and below typical human perception. Their sense of smell registered at levels comparable to predatory animals, confirming Ruth's claims about tracking human scent across vast distances. "They're not just surviving their lifestyle," Dr. Rodriguez concluded in her preliminary report. "They're perfectly adapted for it. Whatever process created these adaptations has produced humans optimized for predatory behavior and cannibalistic consumption." The medical examination report would become one of the most classified documents in FBI history, its implications too disturbing for public release. The Bain clan represented either an impossible medical anomaly or evidence that human beings could adapt to extreme circumstances far more rapidly and completely than science had ever imagined. The crude drawing lay spread across Dr. Rachel Santos's desk, created with charcoal on a piece of bark by 8-year-old Mary Bain. The child psychologist stared at the disturbing sketch, trying to process what she was seeing through the innocent eyes of a damaged child. The drawing depicted what Mary called feeding time with horrifying matter-of-fact normalcy. Stick figures, with elongated limbs gathered around a central shape that was unmistakably human. Smaller figures, the children waited patiently at the edges while the adults performed their grisly work. Mary had even included smiling faces on all the figures, as if documenting a pleasant family dinner. "Tell me about this picture, Mary," Dr. Santos said gently, her voice carefully modulated to avoid showing her revulsion. Mary looked up with eyes that held an intelligence far beyond her years, though her elongated skull and unusual features marked her clearly as one of the clan. "That's Sunday supper," she explained proudly. "Daddy caught a big one that week, a man with a heavy pack who got lost near the old mine shaft." Dr. Santos struggled to maintain her professional composure. In 30 years of child psychology, she had worked with victims of every conceivable trauma, but Mary Bain wasn't a victim. She was a perpetrator who had never known another way of life. The rehabilitation center buzzed with activity as specialists attempted to assess and treat the 7 clan children, ranging in age from 5 to 16. Each child presented unique challenges that existing psychological frameworks couldn't adequately address. 10-year-old Jacob Bain sat in the corner of the playroom, methodically tearing apart a stuffed animal with his fingernails. His movements were precise and purposeful, showing none of the random destructiveness typical of disturbed children. "Jacob," called play therapist Lisa Morgan, "would you like to try drawing instead?" Jacob looked up with genuine confusion. "Why would I want to draw when I could practice? Granddaddy says I need to work on my cutting techniques if I'm gonna be a good provider for the family." The casual reference to violence delivered in a child's voice sent chills through the treatment staff. These weren't children acting out due to trauma, they were children who had been systematically trained in predatory behavior from birth. Dr. Santos interviewed each child individually, documenting their responses for what would become a groundbreaking study in developmental psychology. The older children proved most challenging, their personalities already formed around the clan's twisted value system. 16-year-old Sarah Bain, Ezekiel's granddaughter, displayed the clan's characteristic physical features but possessed a sharp intelligence that made her particularly disturbing. During her evaluation, she spoke about their lifestyle with the analytical detachment of an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. "Y'all act like we done something wrong," Sarah said, echoing her father's words. "But every creature on Earth eats meat. We just eat different meat than most folks. Seems to me that makes us more honest about what we are." When Dr. Santos attempted to explain concepts of morality and social acceptable behavior, Sarah listened with polite attention but clear incomprehension. The abstract notions of right and wrong held no meaning for someone raised to view humans as prey, animals. The younger children showed more promise for rehabilitation, their personalities less fully formed. 5-year-old Daniel Bain demonstrated normal play behaviors when separated from his older siblings, though his dietary preferences remained problematic. "The child refuses to eat anything but raw meat," reported nutritionist Amy Chen. "We've tried every approach: gradual introduction of other foods, reward systems, even medication to reduce his food aversion. He simply won't consume plant matter or cooked proteins." Educational efforts proved equally challenging. The children had received no formal schooling, learning instead through oral tradition and hands-on training in hunting and processing techniques. Their knowledge base was simultaneously primitive and sophisticated. They could track animals and humans with expert skill, but couldn't read or write their own names. Dr. Santos worked with 12-year-old Rebecca Bain, attempting to teach basic literacy skills. Rebecca proved highly intelligent but struggled with abstract concepts that didn't relate to survival or hunting. "What's the point of reading marks on paper?" Rebecca asked during one session. "Daddy says everything important gets passed down through talking and doing. Books can't teach you how to smell fear or track wounded prey." The psychological profiles revealed children who functioned normally within their own cultural context, but were completely maladapted for integration into civilized society. They showed empathy and affection toward family members while displaying complete emotional disconnection from their victims. Most disturbing was their matter-of-fact attitude toward violence and cannibalism. When shown pictures of normal families eating conventional meals, the children expressed genuine puzzlement about why anyone would choose such weak food sources. Dr. Santos' reports painted a bleak picture of rehabilitation prospects. These children haven't been traumatized into their behavior patterns, she wrote. They've been systematically educated into them from birth. We're not treating victims of abuse. We're attempting to reprogram predators who have never known any other way of existence. The youngest children showed glimmers of hope, their personalities still malleable enough for potential intervention. But the older ones, particularly those who had participated in hunts, seemed beyond reach of conventional psychological treatment. The final entry in Marcus Kellerman's hiking journal, dated 3 weeks before his disappearance, sent chills through the investigation team. His neat handwriting described encounters with forest people that he'd initially dismissed as local folklore coming to disturbing life. Day 6 of the Appalachian Traverse. Something's not right in these mountains. Keep seeing movement in my peripheral vision, but when I turn to look, nothing's there. Local ranger stations said there are no permanent residents in this area, but I swear I'm being watched. FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Jennifer Walsh studied the journal alongside detailed maps of the region, piecing together the clan's hunting methodology through the eyes of their victims. Kellerman's account provided crucial insights into how the Bain family had operated undetected for decades. Day 6 found strange markings on trees, symbols carved into bark that don't match any trail markers. I know also discovered what looks like deliberate trail blockages, fallen logs positioned to funnel hikers towards specific paths. Getting an uncomfortable feeling that I'm being herded somewhere. Agent Webb's investigation revealed the sophistication of the clan's territory management. They had spent generations mapping every game trail, water source, and natural shelter within their hunting grounds. More disturbing, they had subtly modified the landscape to guide their prey into predetermined killing zones. Ruth Bain, during her interrogation, displayed an intimate knowledge of human psychology that would have impressed academic researchers. Her explanations of their hunting techniques revealed predatory intelligence honed across generations. Most city folks follow patterns like sheep, Ruth explained with disturbing pride. They stick to marked trails, camp in obvious spots, make the same mistakes over and over. We learn to read those patterns, use them against the prey. The clan had developed an elaborate system of trail monitoring, using everything from broken twigs to scent markers to track the movement of potential victims through their territory. They knew which routes were most popular with different types of hikers and adjusted their hunting strategies accordingly. Kellerman's journal continued with growing unease. Day 10, definitely being stalked now. Caught glimpses of figures moving parallel to my path, always staying just out of clear sight. Tried changing direction several times, but they seemed to anticipate my moves, getting seriously spooked. Walsh's analysis revealed psychological warfare tactics that demonstrated remarkable understanding of fear and disorientation. The clan would track victims for days, allowing them to catch occasional glimpses of their pursuers while never making direct contact. This gradual escalation of terror served multiple purposes. It exhausted the prey physically and mentally while driving them deeper into the clan's territory. Timothy Bain, the youngest of the active hunters, provided chilling insights into their stalking techniques during his psychological evaluation. His casual description of learned predatory behavior shocked even experienced interrogators. "Granddaddy taught me that scared prey tastes better," Timothy explained matter-of-factly. "Fear changes the meat somehow, makes it more tender. So we always let him know we're coming, just not when or from where." The investigation team discovered evidence of elaborate trap systems throughout the clan's territory. Pitfalls concealed with brush, snares positioned along game trails, and deadfalls triggered by tripwires showed engineering sophistication that contradicted assumptions about the clan's primitive lifestyle. Search and rescue coordinator Captain Mike Torres had unknowingly documented the clan's hunting grounds for years through missing person reports. When he overlaid decades of disappearance data onto topographical maps, a clear pattern emerged. Every single vanishing occurred within a 15-mile radius of that settlement, Torres reported to the investigation team. We always assumed it was coincidence. Dangerous terrain, sudden weather changes, people getting in over their heads. We never considered that something was actively hunting them. Kellerman's final entries revealed the psychological breaking point that the clan deliberately induced in their victims. Day 12. Can't shake them. They're everywhere and nowhere. Found my backpack torn open this morning. Food scattered but nothing actually taken. It's like they're playing with me, starting to wonder if I'll make it out of these mountains alive. The journal ended abruptly, but forensic evidence told the rest of the story. Kellerman's remains were found in the clan's processing area, his gear added to their trophy collection, alongside dozens of other victims. Agent Webb's behavioral analysis revealed hunting patterns refined across multiple generations. The clan had learned to identify easy targets, inexperienced hikers, solo travelers, people who hadn't filed detailed itineraries with rangers or family members. They weren't random killers, Webb explained to the task force. They were selective predators who understood that certain types of victims were less likely to be missed quickly. College students on unplanned trips, drifters hiking between seasonal jobs, people escaping personal problems who might be assumed to have simply started new lives elsewhere. The true scope of their hunting operation became clear through geographic information system analysis. The clan controlled crucial choke points along popular hiking routes, creating a killing field that had claimed victims for nearly a century while remaining invisible to law enforcement. The collection of human teeth, strung together on sinew cord, made a clicking sound as Ruth Bain fingered the gruesome necklace during her interrogation. Hundreds of teeth in various sizes and conditions, each one representing a successful hunt, each one a life ended to feed the clan's unholy appetite. "This here's my grandmother's necklace," Ruth said with genuine pride, holding up the macabre jewelry for Agent Webb to examine. Great-grandmother Mercy started the tradition. Every tooth tells a story, every hunt adds to the family legacy. Webb forced himself to study the artifact professionally, though every instinct screamed at him to look away. The teeth showed varying degrees of wear and age, suggesting the collection spanned multiple decades. Some bore gold fillings, others showed modern dental work, silent testimony to victims from different eras. "Tell me about your grandmother," Webb said, settling back in his chair and activating the recording equipment. Ruth's interrogation had become the key to understanding the clan's twisted evolution from desperate survivors to efficient predators. Ruth's eyes took on a distant quality as she accessed memories passed down through oral tradition. Great-grandmother Mercy, she was the one who really understood what we was meant to become. When great-great-granddaddy Silas first started the family, they was just trying to survive. But Mercy, she saw the bigger picture. The story that emerged challenged every assumption about the clan's origins. Rather than a family driven to cannibalism by desperation, Ruth described a deliberate transformation guided by a woman whose intelligence had been focused entirely on creating the perfect predatory bloodline. Mercy studied every kill, learned from every hunt. She figured out which traits made the best hunters, and made sure those traits got passed down. Taught her children and grandchildren that we wasn't just people anymore. We was something better, something evolved. Webb realized he was listening to the architect of the clan's horror describe her methodology with the clinical detachment of a scientist discussing selective breeding program. Mercy Bain had systematically guided her family's genetic and cultural development toward a single goal, creating humans optimized for hunting other humans. She kept detailed records, Ruth continued, unconsciously stroking the tooth necklace. Every mating, every birth, every successful hunt. Mercy knew which bloodlines produced the strongest hunters, the keenest senses, the best instincts. She arranged all the family pairings to strengthen those traits. The interrogation revealed religious elements that added another layer of horror to the clan's practices. Ruth described beliefs that positioned cannibalism not just as survival strategy, but as spiritual communion with their victims. Mercy taught us that when we consume the flesh, we take in their strength, their knowledge, their life force. Every person we eat becomes part of us, makes us stronger and smarter. That's why we keep the teeth, to honor their contribution to our family's power. Patricia Vance, the forensic psychiatrist observing the interrogation, recognized elements of organized delusional systems that had sustained the clan's practices across generations. Ruth's beliefs weren't the random ravings of a disturbed individual, they were coherent theological frameworks that provided moral justification for systematic murder. The religious components are crucial, Dr. Vance explained to Webb during a break. They've created a belief system that transforms murder into sacred ritual, cannibalism into spiritual practice. It's not mental illness, it's an entire alternative moral framework. Ruth's description of their hunting rituals revealed ceremonies that preceded each kill, elaborate preparations that elevated murder to religious observance. The clan would fast before hunts, perform purification rites, and offer prayers to what they called the Old Hunger, a deity they believed blessed their predatory nature. Before every hunt, we gather round the family stones and ask the Old Hunger to guide our hands and sharpen our senses. Ruth explained. Mercy said the Old Hunger chose our family special, gave us gifts that regular folks don't have. Our duty is to use them gifts proper. The teeth collection served multiple purposes beyond simple trophy keeping. Ruth described how each tooth was blessed and assigned specific properties, some for luck in hunting, others for protection from discovery, still others for ensuring successful breeding within the clan. Webb found himself struggling to maintain professional objectivity as Ruth casually described their systematic approach to victim selection and processing. Her intelligence was undeniable, but it had been focused entirely on perfecting techniques for murder and consumption. Mercy always said the key was patience. Ruth continued. Don't rush the hunt, don't take unnecessary risks. Study the prey, learn their weaknesses, wait for the perfect moment. She lived to be 93 and never lost a single hunt. The interrogation revealed the true scope of Mercy Bain's influence on the clan's development. She had not just shaped their hunting practices, but had engineered their entire social structure around predatory efficiency, marriage arrangements, child-rearing practices, even their dietary restrictions, all designed to create and maintain the perfect human predators. As Ruth fingered her gruesome necklace, Webb understood that he wasn't just investigating a family of killers, he was documenting the systematic creation of a new type of human being, one designed specifically to prey upon its own species with ruthless efficiency. Michael Chang stared at the genetic analysis results spread across his laboratory bench, the data points defying every principle of evolutionary biology he had learned in 20 years of research. The lab reports showed mutations that simply couldn't exist, genetic variations that should have been lethal but instead appeared to enhance the clan's survival capabilities. This is impossible, Chang muttered to his research assistant, Dr. Lisa Park, as they reviewed the DNA sequencing for the third time. These genetic markers don't exist in any known human population. We're looking at adaptations that should take thousands of generations to develop. The blood samples from the Bain clan revealed chromosome variations that challenged fundamental understanding of human genetics. Specific gene sequences showed evidence of rapid mutation and selection pressure that had somehow compressed millennia of evolutionary change into 5 generations of extreme inbreeding. Park highlighted anomalies in the digestive system genes that correlated with the clan's enhanced ability to process human protein. Look at these enzyme production markers. They're producing gastric acids at concentrations that would be fatal to normal humans, but their stomach lining has simultaneously adapted to resist the corrosive effects. Chain contacted colleagues at major research institutions, sharing sanitized data without revealing the source. The responses were universally skeptical. Several prominent geneticists suggested the samples had been contaminated or the analysis equipment was malfunctioning. Professor Sarah Williams from Johns Hopkins Medical School provided the most detailed analysis of the impossible results. If these genetic markers are accurate, we're looking at directed evolution occurring at rates that violate everything we know about genetic drift and natural selection. This level of physiological adaptation requires selective pressure, so extreme it should have killed the entire bloodline. The clan's sensory adaptations proved equally mystifying. Genetic analysis revealed mutations in olfactory receptor genes that had expanded their capacity for scent detection far beyond normal human ranges. Ruth Baines claimed ability to track human scent across miles wasn't psychological delusion, it was supported by verifiable genetic enhancement. Chain discovered markers indicating dramatically enhanced night vision capabilities, changes to muscle fiber composition that explained their superior strength, and modifications to brain chemistry that affected their response to stress and fear. Each adaptation perfectly supported their predatory lifestyle. It's as if someone designed these modifications specifically for human hunting, Dr. Park observed, studying the cardiovascular enhancements that allowed sustained pursuit of prey across difficult terrain. The changes are too targeted, too perfectly suited to their activities to be random mutation. The most disturbing discovery involved genetic markers associated with empathy and social bonding. The clan showed systematic suppression of genes linked to emotional connection with non-family members, while simultaneously showing enhanced bonding within their bloodline. Dr. Chang's consultation with evolutionary biologist, Dr. Robert Sterling, yielded equally troubling insight. What you're describing sounds less like natural evolution and more like artificial selection taken to an extreme. The precision of these adaptations suggests someone guided the process deliberately. The genetic analysis revealed evidence of successful adaptation to their cannibalistic diet that shouldn't have been possible. Normal humans consuming human flesh regularly would develop fatal prion diseases, but the clan showed genetic resistance to these inevitably lethal conditions. Their immune systems have developed specific defenses against cannibalism-related diseases, Chang explained to Agent Webb during a briefing. They're producing antibodies and cellular responses that protect against pathogens that would kill anyone else following their dietary practices. Perhaps most impossibly, the genetic analysis revealed that the clan's extreme inbreeding had somehow avoided the catastrophic birth defects and genetic disorders that should have eliminated them within 2 generations. Instead of genetic bottlenecking leading to extinction, their limited gene pool had concentrated beneficial mutations while suppressing deleterious ones. Dr. Sterling's theoretical framework for the clan's genetic development challenged conventional understanding of human adaptability. We're potentially looking at evidence that human beings can undergo rapid evolutionary change under extreme selective pressure. But the speed and precision of these changes suggests mechanisms we don't currently understand. The laboratory results raise disturbing questions about human genetic potential. If the Bain clan could adapt so completely to predatory cannibalism in just 5 generations, what other rapid evolutionary changes might be possible under different extreme circumstances? Changen's final report, classified at the highest levels, concluded that the clan represented either an unprecedented medical anomaly or evidence that human genetics could be modified far more rapidly and dramatically than science had previously believed possible. The implications extend far beyond this single family, Chain wrote in his summary. If these genetic adaptations can occur naturally under extreme selective pressure, we need to reconsider fundamental assumptions about human evolutionary potential and the stability of our species' genetic blueprint. The genetic analysis results would remain classified indefinitely, their implications too dangerous for public knowledge and too impossible for scientific publication. The cave map etched into granite revealed a subterranean world that explained how the Bain clan had operated undetected for nearly a century. Carved with primitive tools but showing sophisticated understanding of underground geography, the stone markings depicted an extensive tunnel system that connected dozens of natural caves beneath their mountain territory. Spelunking expert Amanda Torres lowered herself into the main cave entrance with a team of FBI investigators, their headlamps cutting through darkness that had hidden the clan's secrets for generations. The initial descent revealed carved stone steps worn smooth by decades of use, leading into chambers that served purposes too horrible to contemplate. "Jesus Christ," whispered Agent Martinez, his voice echoing off stone walls as his light illuminated the first storage chamber. "How long have they been using this place?" The preservation rooms carved into natural limestone formations showed evidence of sophisticated food storage techniques developed over generations. Crude but effective refrigeration systems used underground streams and natural temperature variations to maintain optimal conditions for storing human meat across extended periods. Torres documented each chamber methodically, her geological expertise revealing the clan's intimate understanding of their underground environment. They've modified these natural caves with remarkable skill. The ventilation systems, the drainage, the structural reinforcements, this represents decades of sophisticated underground engineering. The tunnel network extended far beyond the initial settlement, connecting to cave systems throughout the clan's hunting territory. Hidden entrances allowed them to appear and disappear across their mountain domain like phantoms, emerging from underground passages to ambush unsuspecting victims before vanishing back into the earth. Agent Webb examined stone carvings that marked different chambers according to their purposes. Crude symbols indicated storage areas, processing rooms, and what appeared to be ceremonial spaces where the clan conducted their ritualistic preparations for hunts and feedings. "Look at this," Dr. Torres called from a side chamber, her voice tight with revulsion. The preservation room contained evidence of the clan's systematic approach to food storage. Human remains carefully processed and cured using techniques that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of meat preservation without modern refrigeration. The tunnel system revealed how the clan had maintained their hunting efficiency across such a large territory. Underground passages allowed them to traverse miles of mountain terrain without detection, emerging at strategic points along hiking trails and camping areas to monitor potential victims. Timothy Bain, during his interrogation, provided insights into how the family used their underground network. His casual descriptions of childhood adventures in the tunnels revealed the system's true scope and complexity. "Granddaddy used to take me spelunking when I was little," Timothy explained with nostalgic fondness. "Said every Bain needed to know the mountain's secret ways. We could travel clean across our territory without ever showing ourselves to outsiders." The caves also served as emergency shelters during harsh winter months, equipped with stored supplies and protected living areas that allowed the clan to survive mountain winters that would challenge even experienced survivalists. Stone-lined fire pits and crude furniture carved from rock showed evidence of extended underground habitation. Torres discovered evidence that the clan had connected multiple natural cave systems through hand-dug tunnels, creating an integrated underground highway that spanned their entire territory. The engineering required represented generations of labor and intimate geological knowledge. "They've essentially created a parallel world beneath the mountains," Dr. Torres reported to the investigation team, "a complete infrastructure that supports their surface activities while remaining completely hidden from detection." The most disturbing discovery came in the deepest chambers, where ancient stone carvings depicted the clan's history and religious beliefs. Primitive artwork showed their interpretation of their transformation from normal humans into what they considered an evolved predatory species. Agent Webb studied symbolic representations of their hunting rituals and cannibalistic practices carved into chamber walls. The artwork revealed beliefs that positioned their lifestyle as sacred calling rather than criminal behavior, with imagery suggesting they viewed themselves as chosen instruments of a higher power. Hidden chambers contained collections of victim belongings, organized with museum-like precision. Personal effects from decades of murders were sorted by type and date, creating a macabre archive of their hunting success that served both as trophy collection and historical record. The cave system explained many mysteries about the clan's operation. How they had avoided detection despite operating in a region with regular search and rescue activities. How they transported victims and processed remains without leaving surface evidence. How they maintained their operations through severe weather and seasonal changes. Ruth Bain's interrogation revealed the underground network's strategic importance to their survival. The mountains got more secrets than most folks know, she explained with obvious pride. Great-grandmother Mercy always said the earth herself was helping us stay hidden, providing us with safe places to do our work. The investigation team realized they had uncovered not just a crime scene, but an entire hidden civilization that had existed parallel to normal society for nearly a century, invisible yet predatory, sustained by an infrastructure of underground passages and storage facilities that rivaled ancient catacombs in their complexity and purpose. The Rorschach test results spread across Dr. Patricia Vance's desk told a story that challenged every foundation of criminal psychology. Where normal subjects might see butterflies, flowers, or abstract shapes in the inkblots, the Bain clan members consistently identified predatory scenarios, hunting scenes, and anatomical details that revealed minds completely disconnected from conventional moral boundaries. Look at Ezekiel's responses to Card 3, Dr. Vance explained to Agent Webb, pointing to detailed notes documenting the patriarch's interpretations. Where most people see two figures interacting socially, he immediately identified two hunters fighting over fresh kill. The consistency of predatory interpretation across all clan members is unprecedented. The psychological evaluation results revealed individuals who functioned within their own twisted framework, but showed complete inability to comprehend moral concepts that governed civilized society. Their responses to standard psychological tests painted pictures of minds that had evolved beyond normal human empathy. Ruth Bain's evaluation proved particularly disturbing. Her intelligence measured well above average, but her emotional responses showed patterns typically associated with severe psychopathy. Yet unlike clinical psychopaths, Ruth demonstrated deep emotional connections within her family unit while maintaining absolute disconnection from anyone outside the clan. She shows genuine love and protective instincts toward her relatives, Dr. Vance noted during a case conference, but she views all non-family members as potential prey animals. It's not the absence of empathy, it's empathy that's been systematically narrowed to exclude everyone outside her bloodline. The inkblot test revealed disturbing consistency across clan members in their perception of human interaction. Where normal subjects might interpret ambiguous shapes as people dancing, talking, or embracing, the Bain family consistently saw hunting scenarios, food preparation, and predatory relationships. Timothy Bain's responses proved most chilling due to his youth. At 15, his psychological development should have retained some flexibility, but his test results showed personality patterns as fixed and predatory as his adult relatives. Card 7 typically elicits responses about maternal figures or nurturing relationships, Vance explained to the evaluation team. Timothy immediately identified a mother teaching her young to hunt. Even his most basic social concepts are filtered through predatory frameworks. The evaluation process revealed that attempting traditional psychological rehabilitation would be futile. The clan members didn't suffer from mental illness in any conventional sense. They had been systematically conditioned from birth to view the world through entirely different moral and social frameworks. James Morrison, the forensic psychiatrist consulting on the case, discovered that the clan's psychological profiles defied standard diagnostic categories. They're not delusional, they accurately perceive their environment and make rational decisions within their value system. They're not psychotic, they maintain clear contact with reality. They're something we don't have terminology for. The clan's responses to moral reasoning exercises proved particularly revealing. When presented with ethical dilemmas that tested empathy and social responsibility, they consistently chose solutions that prioritized clan survival and hunting efficiency over broader human welfare. Ezekiel's response to the classic trolley problem, whether to divert a runaway trolley to kill one person instead of 5, focused entirely on which choice would provide better meat for his family. He showed no comprehension of the ethical framework underlying the question. The fundamental issue, Dr. Vance explained in her preliminary report, is that these individuals operate within a completely alternative moral universe. They're not failing to understand right and wrong. They're working from entirely different definitions of those concepts. The psychological evaluations revealed sophisticated emotional intelligence within the clan's limited social circle. They demonstrated complex understanding of family dynamics, loyalty and interpersonal relationships. Their emotional deficits were specific to their perception of outsiders as prey rather than people. Sarah Baines' evaluation showed the clearest example of this selective empathy. During testing, she displayed genuine distress when shown images of clan members in pain or danger, but showed no emotional response to pictures of non-family members suffering. It's as if they've evolved a form of tribalism so extreme that it excludes the entire rest of humanity, Dr. Morrison observed. They're capable of normal human emotions and relationships, but only within their bloodline. The ink blot test revealed another disturbing pattern. The clan members showed remarkable consistency in their interpretations, suggesting shared psychological frameworks passed down through generations. Their responses weren't individual psychological quirks, but evidence of systematically conditioned worldviews. Young Mary Baines' responses proved most heartbreaking. At 8 years old, she should have shown natural childhood interpretations of the abstract shapes, animals, toys, fantasy creatures. Instead, her responses consistently focused on hunting, feeding, and predatory relationships, presented with the matter-of-fact acceptance of learned normalcy. Dr. Vance's final assessment painted a picture of minds that had been systematically shaped across generations to perceive humanity in purely predatory terms. The clan represented not mental illness but successful cultural conditioning that had created psychologically functional predators who viewed cannibalism as natural behavior and murder as acceptable subsistence activity. The cassette tape recording crackled with static as Agent Webb played back the testimony that had been dismissed as fantasy for 15 years. The voice belonged to Janet Morrison, a hiker who had escaped the Bain clan in 2008, but whose account had been filed away as trauma-induced delusion by local authorities who couldn't comprehend the truth she was telling. "They kept me for 3 days," Janet's recorded voice trembled through the speakers. "I thought I was going to die, but they said they were preparing me, making me ready for what they called the honor of feeding their family." Dr. Sarah Kim, the trauma specialist brought in to interview survivors, listened to Janet's account with growing horror. The woman's description of captivity matched evidence found at the clan settlement with disturbing accuracy, details that couldn't have been fabricated or imagined. Webb had located 3 survivors of clan encounters over the past 2 decades, their stories previously dismissed as hallucinations or attempts to gain attention. Now, with the Bain settlement discovered, their testimonies provided crucial insights into the clan's hunting rituals and victim processing methods. Janet Morrison's 2008 escape had been attributed to hypothermia-induced hallucinations when she stumbled into a ranger station, claiming to have been held captive by monsters in the mountains. Her physical condition, severe dehydration, multiple lacerations, and evidence of prolonged captivity had been explained away as the result of being lost in the wilderness. "They had cages," Janet continued on the recording, "crude things, made from car parts and scrap metal, but strong enough to hold people. I wasn't alone. There was a man there who'd been captured weeks before me. He tried to warn me about what they planned to do." The interview revealed systematic psychological torture designed to maximize fear in victims before their eventual slaughter. The clan had developed sophisticated understanding of how terror affected meat quality, deliberately traumatizing their captives to enhance the flavor of their flesh. Dr. Kim interviewed Robert Chen, a backpacker who had escaped clan hunters in 2012 by falling into a ravine and playing dead until they moved on. His account provided detailed descriptions of the clan's hunting techniques and their apparent ability to track prey across vast distances. They moved through the forest like they were part of it, Robert explained during his interview. No sound, no disturbed vegetation, just suddenly there when you least expected it. They only escaped because I fell down a cliff face, and they assumed I was dead. Robert's description of the clan members matched the physical characteristics documented during their capture: elongated limbs, oversized skulls, and predatory movements that seemed more animal than human. His account had been dismissed as concussion-induced hallucination when he reported it to authorities. The most disturbing testimony came from Maria Santos, who had been held captive for over a week in 2015 before managing to escape during a clan hunting expedition. Her detailed account of their ritualistic preparations for cannibalism provided insights into the religious aspects of their practices. They would pray before each meal, Maria testified, her voice steady despite the horror of her memories. Not to God, but to something they called the Old Hunger. They believed that eating human flesh was a sacred act that connected them to their deity. Maria's description of the clan's preparation rituals matched evidence found in their underground ceremonial chambers. She described elaborate ceremonies involving the blessing of victims, ritualistic consumption of specific body parts, and communal feeding that reinforced family bonds through shared cannibalism. The children participated too, Maria continued, her voice breaking. Little ones who couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, eating human flesh like it was completely normal. They looked at me like I was livestock, not a person. The survivor testimonies corroborated forensic evidence about the clan's victim selection criteria and hunting patterns. All 3 survivors described being stalked for days before capture, with the clan studying their movements and behavior before determining the optimal time and location for abduction. Janet Morrison's account revealed the clan's practice of keeping victims alive for extended periods before slaughter. They said fear made the meat taste better, so they wanted us properly terrified before they killed us. They would show us bones from previous victims, describe exactly what they planned to do to us. The psychological evaluation of survivors revealed long-term trauma, consistent with prolonged captivity and exposure to extreme violence. All 3 exhibited symptoms of PTSD, survivor guilt, and recurring nightmares about their experiences with the clan. Dr. Kim's analysis confirmed that the survivors' accounts were consistent with documented evidence rather than trauma-induced fantasy. These individuals experienced something beyond normal human cruelty. Their testimonies provide crucial insights into predatory behavior that operated outside conventional criminal frameworks. The tape recordings became critical evidence in understanding the full scope of the clan's operations. Media attention following the discovery of the settlement finally gave credibility to accounts that had been dismissed for years, highlighting how society's inability to comprehend such extreme evil had allowed the clan to continue operating undetected. The court filing documents stacked 3 feet high on District Attorney Michael Harrison's desk represented a legal system struggling to define appropriate charges for crimes that existed outside conventional law. The paperwork revealed a prosecutorial nightmare where traditional murder charges seemed inadequate for systematic cannibalism spanning multiple generations. How do you charge someone with crimes they genuinely believe are normal behavior? Harrison asked his assistant district attorney Jennifer Walsh as they reviewed the unprecedented case files. These aren't defendants who understand they committed murder, they're defendants who view their actions as family tradition. The legal framework for prosecuting the Bain clan presented challenges that had never been addressed in American jurisprudence. Defense attorneys argued that the clan members couldn't be held responsible for actions they had been conditioned from birth to view as acceptable survival behavior. Federal prosecutor David Sterling faced equally complex issues in preparing federal charges. The interstate nature of many victims' disappearances brought federal jurisdiction, but existing laws weren't designed to address systematic cannibalism as a cultural practice, rather than individual criminal behavior. We're dealing with defendants who show no remorse because they can't comprehend that they committed crimes, Sterling explained to the prosecution team. Their psychological evaluations indicate genuine inability to understand moral and legal concepts that form the foundation of our criminal justice system. The competency hearings revealed the legal system's inadequacy in addressing defendants who functioned normally within their own cultural framework, but showed complete disconnection from broader social norms. Judge Patricia Caldwell struggled with determining whether Klan members were competent to stand trial. Mr. Bain, Judge Caldwell addressed Ezekiel during his competency evaluation. "Do you understand the charges against you?" Ezekiel's response highlighted the legal dilemma. "I understand you're saying we done wrong, Your Honor, but I don't rightly comprehend how providing for my family could be criminal behavior. We've been living this way for nigh on 100 years. Defense attorney Robert Kim argued that the Klan members couldn't receive fair trials because they lacked fundamental understanding of the legal concepts underlying their charges. These individuals have no comprehension of why their traditional lifestyle is being criminalized. They're intellectually incapable of participating in their own defense. The court filings revealed prosecutorial attempts to establish precedent for charging systematic cannibalism under existing murder statutes, but the Klan's apparent immunity to conventional legal reasoning complicated every aspect of the proceedings. International legal experts weighed in on the unprecedented case, with anthropologists arguing that the Klan represented a distinct cultural group whose practices, while abhorrent, fell under different legal frameworks than individual criminal behavior. Professor Amanda Chen from Harvard Law School submitted an amicus brief arguing that the case required new legal categories. "We're attempting to apply laws designed for individuals who share common social frameworks to defendants who operate from entirely different moral universes." The victim impact statements presented another legal challenge. Families of identified victims demanded justice, but the traditional criminal justice process seemed inadequate for addressing systematic predation that spanned decades and involved entire family units, including children. District Attorney Harrison struggled with appropriate sentences for defendants who showed no possibility of rehabilitation within conventional frameworks. Life imprisonment seems inadequate for systematic cannibalism, but the death penalty feels inappropriate for individuals who lack conventional understanding of their crime's moral weight. The court filings documented attempts to establish legal precedent by examining historical cases of cannibalism, but none involved systematic cultural practices maintained across multiple generations. The Bain Klan represented a unique legal challenge that existing frameworks couldn't adequately address. Media coverage of the legal proceedings created public pressure for severe punishment, while simultaneously raising uncomfortable questions about cultural relativism and moral absolutism. Legal scholars debated whether society had the right to criminalize practices that represented genuine cultural traditions, regardless of their abhorrent nature. The federal charges included murder, kidnapping, and interstate transportation of stolen property, but prosecutors acknowledged that existing legal frameworks were inadequate for addressing the systematic nature of the Klan's operations. The court filings revealed attempts to create new legal categories for systematic cultural violence. Judge Caldwell's preliminary rulings established precedent for handling defendants who showed competency within their own cultural framework, but incompetency within broader legal standards. Her decisions required creating hybrid legal approaches that balanced individual rights with public safety concerns. The court documents revealed prosecutorial concerns about setting dangerous precedents that could be exploited by other defendants claiming cultural justifications for criminal behavior. The case threatened to complicate future prosecutions by establishing defenses based on alternative moral frameworks. Defense motions argued that the Klan members should be treated as political refugees from an isolated culture rather than criminal defendants, requesting anthropological rather than criminal evaluation of their behavior within their own social context. The legal nightmare continued as the court system struggled to balance justice for victims with appropriate treatment of defendants who existed outside conventional moral and legal frameworks, creating a case that would influence criminal law for generations. The rehabilitation progress chart mounted on Dr. Rachel Santos' office wall tracked 18 months of painstaking efforts to socialize 7 clan children into normal society. Red marks indicated setbacks. Green showed progress, but the overwhelming pattern revealed the monumental challenge of reprogramming minds shaped from birth by systematic predatory conditioning. Mary's refusing to eat again, reported social worker Lisa Chen, updating the youngest child's progress markers. She's been on hunger strike for 3 days, demanding what she calls proper food. The medical team is concerned about malnutrition. 8-year-old Mary Bain represented both the greatest hope and most heartbreaking failure in the rehabilitation program. Her young age should have made her more adaptable, but her conditioning ran so deep that she couldn't accept conventional food as adequate nutrition. Santos reviewed the progress charts with growing frustration. After 18 months of intensive therapy, only 2 of the 7 children showed meaningful adaptation to civilized behavior. The older ones, particularly Timothy and Sarah, remained locked in their original worldview despite constant intervention. Timothy's been teaching the younger children hunting techniques using toy animals, reported child psychologist Dr. James Wright. We found him showing 5-year-old Daniel how to process prey efficiently during what was supposed to be supervised play therapy. The Rehabilitation Center had become a specialized facility designed specifically for the clan children, with security measures that resembled a psychiatric prison more than a treatment center. Standard foster care placement had proven impossible due to the children's inability to integrate with normal families. Daniel Bain's progress chart showed the most promising developments among the younger children. At 5, when captured, he had begun showing curiosity about conventional toys and foods, though his progress remained fragile and subject to sudden reversals. Daniel played with blocks today without immediately trying to build hunting traps, noted his primary therapist, Dr. Angela Martinez. Small victory, but it represents the first time he's engaged in truly normal child behavior. The educational component of rehabilitation presented unique challenges. The children possessed sophisticated knowledge of tracking, hunting, and survival skills, but lacked basic literacy and numerical concepts. Teaching them to read required overcoming their belief that written communication was inferior to oral tradition. 12-year-old Rebecca Bain had made the most dramatic progress in traditional education, learning to read simple sentences and perform basic arithmetic. However, her writing assignments consistently focused on hunting scenarios and family traditions rather than conventional childhood interests. Rebecca wrote a story about a successful hunt today, reported teacher Martha Stevens. The technical accuracy is impressive, but the casual attitude toward violence remains deeply disturbing. She describes killing and butchering with the same emotional tone other children use for describing birthday parties. The psychological profiles, updated monthly, showed incremental changes in some children, while others remained completely resistant to conventional socialization. The older children's personalities appeared too firmly established for meaningful modification. Sarah Bain, at 16, had been declared beyond rehabilitation after multiple violent incidents with staff and other children. Her progress chart showed consistent red marks indicating aggressive behavior, attempted escapes, and refusal to participate in therapy sessions. Sarah told her therapist yesterday that she's simply waiting for the opportunity to return to her real family. Santos noted during the monthly assessment meeting, she views this entire process as temporary imprisonment rather than helpful intervention. The medical aspects of rehabilitation proved equally challenging. The children's enhanced physical capabilities and unusual dietary requirements created ongoing health management issues that conventional pediatric medicine couldn't adequately address. Daniel's blood work continues to show anomalies, reported pediatrician Dr. Susan Park. His digestive system is adapted for processing raw meat and shows adverse reactions to plant-based nutrients that should be essential for normal development. Success stories remained limited but significant. Jacob Bain, captured at 10, had shown remarkable progress in emotional development, beginning to demonstrate empathy toward non-family members for the first time in his life. Jacob comforted another child who was crying today, his therapist reported. It's the first time we've seen him display protective instincts towards someone outside his bloodline, major breakthrough in his emotional development. The long-term placement options for the children remained uncertain. Traditional adoption was impossible due to their special needs and potential dangers to adoptive families. The Rehabilitation Center had become their permanent home, a specialized institution designed around their unique circumstances. The progress charts told a story of partial victories and ongoing challenges. While some children showed capacity for change, others remained locked in their original conditioning, creating a population that existed between civilized society and their predatory origins. Santos's final assessment after 18 months painted a complex picture. We've achieved meaningful progress with the youngest children, but complete rehabilitation remains unlikely. These children will require lifelong specialized care and monitoring. The question isn't whether they can be fully normalized, but whether they can be helped to function safely within the boundaries of civilized society. The academic journal manuscript lay rejected on Dr. Michael Chang's desk for the third time. Its controversial thesis that the Bane clan represented a new branch of human evolution, deemed too dangerous for publication by every major scientific journal. The peer review comments revealed a scientific community torn between fascination and horror at the implications of the clan's rapid genetic adaptation. The genetic evidence is undeniable, Dr. Chang argued during a heated conference call with editors from Nature Genetics. We're documenting evolutionary changes that occurred in 5 generations rather than 5,000. The scientific community has an obligation to understand these adaptations. Professor Sarah Williams from Johns Hopkins led the opposition to publication, arguing that releasing such research could inspire dangerous attempts to replicate the clan's development. We're talking about systematic inbreeding and cannibalism as evolutionary strategy. Publishing this data could encourage copycat experiments with devastating consequences. The manuscript detailed genetic markers that suggested the Bane clan had undergone directed evolution at unprecedented speed, developing physiological adaptations specifically suited for predatory cannibalism. The research challenged fundamental assumptions about human genetic stability and evolutionary timelines. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the forensic pathologist who had examined clan members, supported publication with strict ethical guidelines. Suppressing scientific data because we find it disturbing sets a dangerous precedent. The medical implications alone justify careful study of these genetic adaptations. The International Conference on Human Genetics became a battleground over the clan research, with scientists divided between those demanding publication and those arguing for permanent classification of the data. The debate revealed deep divisions within the scientific community about research ethics and public safety. The genetic modifications we've documented could revolutionize our understanding of human adaptability, argued Dr. Robert Sterling, the evolutionary biologist studying the clan's development. These adaptations occurred naturally under extreme selective pressure. Studying them could provide insights into human genetic potential. Opposition scientists raised concerns about research that could be interpreted as validating the clan's lifestyle choices. Professor Amanda Chen from Harvard Medical School argued that any publication would inevitably be misinterpreted as scientific endorsement of cannibalism and inbreeding. We cannot separate the scientific data from its horrific context, Dr. Chen argued during the conference proceedings. Publishing research that demonstrates successful adaptation to cannibalistic lifestyle sends dangerous messages regardless of our scientific intentions. The manuscript's most controversial section detailed genetic mechanisms that had allowed the clan to avoid the catastrophic effects of extreme inbreeding while simultaneously developing enhanced predatory capabilities. The research suggested possibilities for human genetic modification that terrified ethicists. Dr. Michael Foster, the radiologist who had documented the clan's physiological adaptations, proposed compromise solutions that would allow scientific study while preventing dangerous application. We could publish the genetic mechanisms without specific details about how they developed. Share the science while protecting against replication. International bioethics committees became involved in the publication debate, with representatives from multiple countries arguing that the research posed global security risks if misapplied by hostile organizations or individuals seeking to create enhanced human predators. The classified nature of much clan research frustrated academic scientists accustomed to open publication and peer review. Government restrictions on data sharing limited the scientific community's ability to verify findings or develop comprehensive understanding of the genetic adaptations. We're creating dangerous precedents by classifying basic genetic research, protested Dr. Lisa Park, Chang's research assistant. Scientific advancement requires open exchange of data and findings. Government censorship of academic research threatens the integrity of the entire scientific enterprise. Religious and philosophical objections to the research added another layer of controversy. Faith-based organizations argued that studying the clan's adaptations implied acceptance of their evolutionary advantages, challenging religious concepts about human creation and moral development. The manuscript's peer reviewers remained divided after multiple revisions. Some praised the rigorous methodology and unprecedented findings, while others questioned whether any scientific benefit could justify the risks of publication. The research meets every standard for scientific rigor, noted Dr. Patricia Vance in her review comments, but the implications extend far beyond academic genetics into areas of public policy, law enforcement and national security that scientific journals aren't equipped to address. Private research institutions began offering substantial funding for continued clan studies, raising concerns about scientific research being driven by commercial or military interests rather than pure academic inquiry. The potential applications for enhanced human genetics attracted attention from organizations with questionable ethical standards. The debate revealed fundamental questions about scientific responsibility in an era where genetic research could have immediate practical applications. The clan's adaptations offered insights into human potential that could benefit medical science while simultaneously providing templates for creating enhanced human predators. Dr. Chang's final decision to withdraw the manuscript from publication consideration reflected the scientific community's inability to reconcile the value of unprecedented genetic research with the dangers of its potential misapplication in a world where the boundaries between scientific advancement and human exploitation continued to blur. The Hidden Chamber Journal, discovered 3 levels deep in the clan's underground network, revealed secrets that transformed the entire understanding of the Bain family's origins. The leather-bound diary, written in multiple hands across decades, told a story that made their century of cannibalism seem like merely the visible surface of a far deeper horror. Agent Webb turned the brittle pages with trembling hands as Dr. Amanda Torres illuminated the text with her headlamp. The journal's first entries, dated 1924, were written in the careful script of someone educated far beyond the primitive clan members they had been investigating. Entry 1, March 15, 1924. Dr. Silas Bain. The subjects have arrived at the facility as planned. 4 daughters, ages 12-17, acquired through legal adoption after their parents' deaths in the influenza outbreak. They remain unaware of their true purpose in my research. Webb felt his blood turn cold as he realized they hadn't been investigating a family driven to cannibalism by desperation. They had uncovered the results of a deliberate scientific experiment spanning multiple generations. Torres read over his shoulder, her geological expertise forgotten in the face of evidence that the cave system hadn't been adapted by primitive survivors, but had been purpose-built as a research facility by someone with formal scientific training. Dr. Silas Bain, Webb muttered, cross-referencing the name with his mental database of missing persons and wanted criminals. We need to run this name through every database we have. This wasn't a family patriarch. This was a scientist conducting human experiments. The journal entries revealed the systematic nature of Silas Bain's research program. He had deliberately created an isolated breeding population to study human adaptation under extreme conditions, using his adopted daughters as the foundation for what he termed controlled evolutionary pressure. Entry 12, August 3, 1924. First-generation subjects showing promising adaptations to modified diet. Digestive efficiency improving markedly. Muscle density increased, sensory capabilities enhanced beyond normal human ranges. The theory appears sound. Extreme selective pressure can accelerate evolutionary adaptation dramatically. The handwriting changed in later entries as Silas's descendants continued documenting the experiment's progress. Ruth Bain's grandmother, Mercy, had been Silas's most successful subject, inheriting both his scientific knowledge and his complete lack of ethical constraints. Entry 47, June 12, 1943. Mercy Bain recording. Father's work continues successfully into the third generation. Physical adaptations now breed true. Intelligence maintained despite inbreeding. The subjects no longer require external dietary supplementation. They hunt and process their own protein sources with remarkable efficiency. Webb realized that what they had interpreted as primitive survival tactics were actually sophisticated experimental protocols passed down through generations of research subjects, who had been trained to continue their creators' work. The journal revealed the true purpose of the clan's underground infrastructure. The caves weren't just hiding places and storage areas, they were observation chambers, research laboratories, and controlled environments designed to monitor the experiment's long-term results. Entry 83, September 20, 1967. Fourth generation showing unprecedented adaptations. Enhanced night vision, improved olfactory capabilities, resistance to diseases that should be fatal given their dietary practices. Father Silas would be proud of his success in creating truly superior human specimens. Dr. Torres discovered additional chambers that had been missed in the initial investigation, rooms filled with primitive but systematic research equipment. Crude measurement devices, specimen preservation materials, and detailed anatomical drawings revealed the scientific methodology underlying the clan's apparent primitiveness. The most disturbing revelation came in the journal's later entries, written by Ezekiel Bain himself. Despite his primitive speech patterns during interrogation, his writing revealed sophisticated understanding of genetics, evolutionary biology, and experimental methodology. Entry 112, March 5, 19. Fifth-generation subjects exceed all projections. Enhanced physical capabilities, perfect adaptation to carnivorous diet, immunity to pathogens that destroy normal humans. The great work approaches completion. Soon we will be ready for expansion beyond this facility. Webb realized the full horror of their discovery. The Bain clan wasn't an isolated family of cannibals. They were the successful result of a century-long human breeding experiment designed to create enhanced predatory humans. Worse, the experiment was apparently nearing completion of its original objectives. The journal's final entries revealed government contact that had been hidden from the investigation. Federal agencies had known about the experiment for decades, providing protection and resources in exchange for research data on human genetic modification. Entry 128, October 10, 2019. Federal oversight continues. Dr. Morrison visits quarterly to document our progress. The military applications for our enhanced capabilities remain of great interest to our sponsor. Father Silas's vision of superior human specimens has attracted attention from the highest levels of government. Webb understood that their investigation had uncovered not just a family of cannibals, but a classified government research program that had sacrificed hundreds of innocent victims to create enhanced human weapons. The prison medical records painted a disturbing picture of the Bain clan members' deterioration during their 18 months in federal custody. Patricia Williams, the correctional facility's chief physician, documented systematic physical and psychological breakdown that defied conventional understanding of human adaptation to incarceration. Subject Ezekiel Bain shows continued weight loss despite adequate nutrition. Williams noted in her weekly assessment, current weight 127 pounds, down from 89 at intake. Refuses all processed foods, will only consume raw meat when available, showing signs of what appears to be species-specific dietary deficiency. The legal proceedings had concluded with mixed results that satisfied no one involved in the unprecedented case. Federal Judge Patricia Caldwell had struggled to balance justice for victims with appropriate treatment of defendants who existed outside conventional legal frameworks. Ezekiel Bain received life imprisonment without parole for 43 counts of first-degree murder, but his complete inability to comprehend his crimes made the sentence feel hollow to both prosecutors and victims' families. His deteriorating condition in custody raised questions about whether conventional imprisonment was appropriate punishment for someone whose physiology required their traditional lifestyle to survive. Ruth Bain's case proved even more complex. Her role as the Klan's primary hunter resulted in 37 murder convictions, but her obvious intelligence and systematic approach to killing made her perhaps the most dangerous of the Klan members. The medical records showed her adaptation to prison life was somewhat better than other family members, though she remained completely unrepentant about her crimes. Patient continues to express confusion about legal proceedings, noted prison psychiatrist Dr. James Chen in Ruth's file. Shows no remorse for actions, maintains that her behavior was not only justified but morally superior to normal human lifestyle, demonstrates no capacity for rehabilitation within conventional frameworks. The younger Klan members presented the most challenging cases for the justice system. Timothy Bain, convicted as an adult despite his age due to his direct participation in multiple murders, showed severe adaptation problems in juvenile detention facilities. Subject Timothy exhibits classic signs of environmental stress disorder, reported juvenile facility physician Sarah Kim. Physical deterioration, psychological distress, apparent inability to process conventional nutrition. His enhanced physical capabilities make him dangerous to other inmates and staff despite his declining health. The prison medical records revealed unexpected consequences of separating Klan members from their traditional environment and diet. Their enhanced digestive systems, perfectly adapted for processing raw human meat, showed adverse reactions to standard prison food that bordered on toxic response. We're essentially watching them starve to death, despite adequate caloric intake, Dr. Williams explained to Warden Michael Harrison. Their metabolic systems have evolved so specifically for their traditional diet that conventional nutrition appears to be actively harmful to their health. The ethical implications of the Klan's deteriorating health created legal and medical dilemmas without precedent. Prison officials found themselves in the impossible position of providing medical care to inmates whose physiology required lifestyle elements that were inherently criminal. Federal corrections administrators consulted with specialists in exotic animal care, seeking guidance for managing inmates whose biological needs fell outside human norms. The comparison to zoo animals raised disturbing questions about the humanity of subjects who had evolved beyond conventional human parameters. The psychological evaluations documented mental deterioration alongside physical decline, separated from their family unit and traditional practices. Klan members showed signs of severe psychological distress that conventional therapy couldn't address. Patient Ruth demonstrates classic symptoms of cultural displacement trauma, noted Dr. Chen. However, her culture involves systematic murder and cannibalism, creating therapeutic challenges we have no framework for addressing. Standard approaches to cultural sensitivity are completely inappropriate given the nature of her traditional practices. The public debate surrounding appropriate punishment for the Klan revealed deep divisions in society's approach to justice and responsibility. Victim advocates demanded severe punishment while civil rights organizations questioned whether individuals conditioned from birth into criminal behavior could be held fully responsible for their action. Media coverage of the Klan members' declining health sparked controversy about cruel and unusual punishment. Some argued that allowing their deterioration constituted torture, while others maintained that providing them with their preferred diet would require murdering additional victims. The prison records documented failed attempts to maintain clan members' health through modified diets and environmental adaptations. Every intervention that might preserve their physical well-being involved accommodating needs that had developed specifically to support their predatory lifestyle. The fundamental issue, Dr. Williams concluded in her annual report, is that these inmates require lifestyle elements that are incompatible with both incarceration and civilized society. We're attempting to provide medical care to individuals whose optimal health depends on behaviors that would constitute additional crimes. The justice system's inability to provide appropriate consequences for the clan's crimes highlighted gaps in legal frameworks designed for conventional human defendants. The clan existed in a legal limbo where traditional punishment proved both inadequate and potentially inhumane for subjects who had evolved beyond normal human parameters. The bronze memorial plaque mounted on a weathered stone cairn bore simple words that could never adequately commemorate the horror that had unfolded in these mountains. In memory of those who vanished in these woods, their lives were not forgotten. The memorial stood where the Bain settlement had once existed, now nothing more than disturbed earth and the whisper of wind through empty trees. Detective Sarah Morrison returned to the site 5 years after the investigation had concluded, her retirement doing little to ease the nightmares that still haunted her sleep. The federal government had sealed the cave systems and demolished the surface structures, but the memory of what she had discovered here remained as vivid as the day she first encountered Ruth Bain's filed teeth. Hard to believe anything that evil could exist in such a peaceful place. Morrison murmured to FBI agent Marcus Webb, who had joined her for this unofficial pilgrimage to a crime scene that had changed both their lives forever. The investigation's aftermath had rippled through law enforcement, academia, and government agencies in ways that continued to resonate years later. Missing persons protocols had been completely overhauled following revelations about how the clan had operated undetected for nearly a century. Search and Rescue Coordinator Captain Mike Torres had implemented new procedures requiring cross-referencing disappearances across wider geographic areas and longer time periods. We learned that predators can be patient and systematic in ways we never imagined. Torres had testified before congressional committees investigating the case. The scientific legacy of the Bain clan remained largely classified, but whispers in academic circles suggested that their genetic adaptations had revolutionized understanding of human evolutionary potential. Michael Chang's research, though never published, had apparently influenced classified government programs exploring human enhancement possibilities. The Children's Rehabilitation Center continued operating as a specialized facility, housing not only the surviving Bain children, but other cases involving extreme developmental trauma. Rachel Santos had become a leading expert in treating children conditioned into criminal behavior, her techniques developed from hard-won experience with subjects who challenged every assumption about human nature. Some of the younger Bain children have made remarkable progress, Santos reported in her annual assessment. Daniel Bain, now 11, shows genuine empathy and has formed healthy attachments with caregiving staff. But the older ones remain essentially unchanged, intelligent, functional, but completely disconnected from conventional moral frameworks. The local community around the former settlement had struggled with the tourism that inevitably followed such notorious crimes. Despite efforts to keep the location secret, amateur investigators and morbid curiosity seekers regularly attempted to access the sealed cave systems. Sheriff Tom Bradley, who had been a crime scene investigator during the original investigation, found himself dealing with trespassers attracted by internet theories about government cover-ups and hidden genetic experiments. People want to believe there's some secret still hidden up there, some explanation that makes sense of what happened. Truth is, sometimes evil just exists without any deeper meaning. The memorial plaque had been erected by families of identified victims, a simple acknowledgement of lives lost to predators who had viewed them as nothing more than food sources. The bronze showed signs of weathering, but visitors continued to leave flowers and personal mementos for relatives who had vanished into these mountains. Media coverage of the case had spawned countless documentaries, books and speculation about government involvement in the clan's development. Most accounts focused on the sensational aspects of cannibalism and inbreeding while missing the deeper horror of systematic human experimentation spanning multiple generations. The true scope of federal knowledge about the Bain experiment remained classified, but congressional investigators confirmed that multiple agencies had been aware of the clan's activities for decades. The implications for other classified research programs continued to fuel conspiracy theories and legitimate concerns about government oversight of human experimentation. Webb reflected on how the case had changed his understanding of human nature and societal assumptions about moral development. We learned that humans can adapt to anything, even things that should destroy them. The clan wasn't an anomaly, they were proof that our species is far more malleable than we want to believe. The Appalachian wilderness had reclaimed the settlement site with surprising speed. 5 years of growth had softened the scars left by demolition crews, but locals reported that wildlife still avoided the area. Hunting guides steered clients away from the former clan territory, claiming that something in the land itself retained the memory of what had happened there. As sunset approached, Morrison and Webb prepared to leave the memorial site. The bronze plaque caught the last rays of sunlight, its simple message serving as inadequate closure for one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal history. The Bain clan's legacy would endure in changed policies, classified research, and the nightmares of those who had witnessed humanity's capacity for systematic evil. Their story remained a cautionary tale about the thin line between civilization and savagery, and the disturbing truth that monsters could evolve from circumstances that society preferred to ignore.